Good morning. This is Holly with Holly's Joys, and I am going to read chapter 1 to you of the book that I've been working on. It is called The Next 12 Steps, and I have already read the intro. So if you have not yet seen that video, go ahead and watch that first, and that way you'll be in the order of which the book has been written. So this will be chapter 1. Admit. Today, I admit my loved one has the dis-ease of addiction. Their dis-ease has caused chaos and a range of difficulties in my life, and I admit I need help. So, chapter 1, admit. It may feel scary, foreign, or weak to say you need help, but also you may feel like you've asked for help and nothing has actually happened. So, I want to tell you my challenge point in this part of the process. It's like a new beginning. Admitting you need help is not necessarily help from outside yourself. The goal here is to equip you in knowing yourself well enough to be of help to yourself. Once you have said, maybe even out loud, that you need help, then finding help is in order. Is it possible that help has been inside you this entire time? Spend the week exploring definitions. It's paramount that you know where I'm coming from in terms of definition. As long as we can define terms, our communication will be more effective. You may even find, as I have, that Webster definitions may be a bit different than your personal beliefs around certain words or concepts. Each week, one in all the following chapters will include an emphasis on definitions because I found that to be helpful. Maybe looking at what you believe to be true is a bit skewed, and just a little tweaking in definitions can make all the difference. Now, back to the topic at hand. I found myself many times stuck in deep sorrow over my loved one's dis-ease of addiction. That deep pit of sorrow, like a root that was keeping me tied to a negative thought pattern. Some of those outlined above. A sad, heavy form of grief. So let's tackle what I have since discovered to be ambiguous grief. A grief that involves someone who is still alive, whose choices leave behind so many dead and dying expectations. Let's define grief. Deep sorrow when coping with loss. This also includes a process that I would say is connected to the coping side of grief. So here are the steps. They may vary from person to person in the process. First, shock and denial. Second, guilt and anger. Third, bargaining, what if or if only. Fourth, depression, defeat. Fifth, acceptance, and back to active living. I included grief with this next 12 steps because I found this was a tremendously difficult process that was happening without my awareness. So all the information I found on my journey through living with my loved one in active addiction and periods of inactive of the disease of addiction. I have heard this process called ambiguous grief because there was not a physical death of my addicted loved one. That's what made my recognition of what was happening so difficult to acknowledge, almost a grief unawares. I looked up the definition of ambiguous grief and I really liked it. Putting words to feelings of this magnitude helped me to come up with coping strategies that work for me. I encourage you to experiment with different strategies until you find something that brings happiness and joy back into your life. Remember to enjoy the process of discovering what these strategies might be and give yourself loads of patience and love. Definition: ambiguous grief. A loss without likelihood of reaching emotional closure or clear understanding. This complication delays actual grief or the ongoing process of grieving through the above list. Become aware of beliefs you hold that you would like to change. This would be easier to recognize after spending the first week just chewing on definitions of suggested words earlier in the chapter. Of course, you are encouraged to dig into any word you feel led to. Basically, getting to know yourself and what you think and believe to be true. After spending time reflecting on what you believe and which beliefs you would like to change, and even actions you would like to incorporate, is a good time to start implementing in RL, real life. So let's apply this to our own lives. Give yourself mental permission and space to begin to embrace step 2 of the previous mentioned grief steps. That is guilt or anger. Personally, I had a ton of both for a very long time. I recommend shortening this process as much as possible, just because in my personal experience, little good comes from it. I've heard it said you cannot get sick enough to make someone else well. In other words, your loved one does not get better because you get worse. And the anger side of this is just painful and destructive to your life and all those around it. It's not good to embrace these feelings for too long. As a person who lived this process, it's totally a benefit to you and your world to work through this phase as quickly as possible. Don't accept your own reasoning around why you should stay stuck in this as a penance. Self-punishment does not fix this. However, self-love goes a long way to health and healing. Allow yourself at least to experiment with the potential in this thought. Don't be hard on yourself for having intense feelings around the topic of your treasured loved one. Even though they have not died, all those hopes and dreams you had, all the potential you saw in them or for them has come to an end, a sort of death. At least your version of their life has ended. Depending on your relationship to your addicted loved one, you have expectations. You may have expected a loving, peaceful, and prosperous life with a stable family of their own. When normal expectations or dreams come crashing down around you in a tornado that addiction brings, there could be financial loss of trust, and loss goes on and on. You may experience this grief process. If your loved one with the disease of addiction is your parent, depending on your age and maturity, you may find yourself reaping consequences not of your own doing, like homelessness or being a parent to your own parent. My own mother suffered from mental illness, which put me in this role very early in life, so I can relate to the impacts of the lack of nurturing and the grief process happening without knowing that's what was going on. I was stuck for years in the depressive phase of grief until I began to use these next 12 steps to actively self-reflect and take responsibility for my own life. If your loved one who has the disease called addiction is your child, you are witness to all the beautiful potential being altered in ways you can only call complete self-destruction. You watch all those tender, precious dreams you saw in your mind's eye so clearly, like graduation, marriage, children, holidays, and all those other tremendously normally lovely life events come crashing down into a complete pile of undiscernible rubble. It's no wonder grief is a response to the disease of addiction, no matter your relationship to a loved one who has addiction as their life's challenge. Look back at the steps related to the grief process and just see if you and I can give ourselves latitude on how we dealt with life in the past. Moving forward, let's experiment with adopting the 12 good goals to support self-support through challenges like the disease of addiction can bring. First month, admit, broken down by week. Week 1, defining and recognizing beliefs. Spend time this week in getting to know what you think and really believe about definitions relating to this process of admitting that you need help. Enjoy discovering yourself and loving what you find, no matter what you think of the things that you do find. Nothing is right and nothing is wrong. They just are. Week 2, what beliefs do I no longer want to hold? During week 2, start to take an active role in deciding what you want to believe versus things you currently do believe. I found most of my beliefs were a byproduct of someone else, that I had not made active determination to believe what I wanted to. I am now making an effort to really take on beliefs I can get behind because they are in my value system and I choose them. Week 3, what are some new beliefs I desire to hold and new actions I want to incorporate into my life? So here's where practice comes in. Take a belief you want to have and play with it during this week. Once you have seen how it lands in your own life by feeling your feelings around it, then you can keep that belief or change it to fit your life and what you're finding you are all about. Have fun. Don't be heavy-handed with yourself. Week 4, review and reflection. Admitting you need help is an open door for change. 2, help can come and does come from within you. 3, be gentle and loving with yourself amidst the process. 4, play with the changes to see what works for you. Moving through admit to accept is a natural process. Opening your mind to the possibility of doing things differently. So be brave and recognize the progress you've made and just keep moving. Remember, I'm not a mental health professional. I am a loving family member of someone who has the disease of addiction. I can offer my experience and ideas that have brought me to this place of peace and love. Chapter 1 is finished. I appreciate y'all. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the things. And know today that if you have someone in your life that you love who has the disease of addiction, know you are not alone. And to keep your eye out for chapter 2 on the next 12 steps. And have a blessed day. Incorporate some joy and happiness. It's okay to be happy. Have a great day. Bye.